Let's look at methods with array lists. Here I have the identical shopping cart array list that I created last time, which is an array list of strings. And we can see the first method is the add method, which is used to append an object to an array list. Here we can see that in the first statement, I use the name of the array list, shopping cart, and I use the .add method, and inside I put the correct type of value I want to assign. Since it's a string array list, I want to put a string literal. That's valid, and I'm allowed to add the string literal carrots to the array list shopping cart, and I'm allowed to do that twice more with lettuce and tomatoes. Right? You might notice that in this little comment I put, in front of the add method, it says boolean. Now the word boolean is the return type of this add method, and it's boolean, which means that this add method always returns true whenever you run it. Now there's also another way, there's another overridden method of the add method, and it contains two parameters. The first is the index where you want to add the actual object, and second is the object itself. If you wanted to add, let's say we wanted to add this tomatoes, instead of adding it at the end, which is the default, we could also use add, and then we'd want to give the index. So we'd want to say 1. Because we want to assign it at the second location in between carrots and lettuce. 1, and then we'd say tomatoes. That's how we'd put it in the middle of carrots and lettuce instead of at the end. So the order instead would be carrots, tomatoes, and lettuce instead of carrots, lettuce, and tomatoes. Now let's look at the size method of an array list. It's pretty simple. It returns an int and basically returns a number of elements in an array list. So for example, if I do this statement system.out.println shopping cart.size, and it's a method, so we have those pair of parentheses, it's going to return the number of elements inside shopping cart, which would be 3 in this case, since we added carrots, lettuce, and tomatoes. Now let's move on to the remove method. Now the remove method also uses an integer inside as a parameter, and you feed it any index, a valid index, in your array list, and it removes that element at that given index. For example, I have shopping cart.remove, and I put 0, which means that it removes the 0th index, meaning like the actual first item inside my shopping cart. So what would that be? Well, if we have carrots, if our current thing is carrots, I'm just going to abbreviate and say C, carrots, lettuce, and tomatoes. Well, our carrots are going to be removed from the list. So our array list is only going to contain L, lettuce, and tomatoes, because we removed the element at the 0th index successfully. It's also useful to note that we also have a get method. Now, what the get method does is we can use a similar notation as we did with the remove method, but we can put the index to get the value of a certain element at that index. This is opposed to, let's say shopping cart was an array. If it was an array, we type in shopping cart, and we'd use the square bracket notation to get the 0th element instead. With array lists, everything is a method, so we'd use the .get method Java makes available to us. Okay, now we also have the set method. Now the set method, you can use it with these two parameters. First of all, the index that you want to set some value to, and then the object. And it's used to replace the element at that given index with the new object that you just passed in. For example, we have shopping cart.set 0, onions. So 0 is the index we want to replace. For example, we said that our array was now lettuce and tomatoes, just simply that because we removed carrots earlier. So if it's lettuce and tomatoes, basically what would happen is we'd set the value at index 0, which is lettuce, to onions now. So the final array list after all those operations is going to be onions, tomatoes. That's how the .set method works. It's really useful to note that both of them return the object. So that they are actually getting and setting. That's their return type, and when we print it out, that's what would be printed out to the console.